The frozen wind cut through Olivia Davison's thin dress like 1,000 knives as she stumbled along the snow-covered road outside Stillwater, Oklahoma, tears streaming down her cheeks and freezing against her skin before they could fall. She had been walking for hours since the stagecoach driver had thrown her belongings into the snow and told her he would not take her another mile without payment. And now, the winter sun was sinking low on the horizon, promising a deadly night if she could not find shelter soon. Her fingers had gone numb inside her inadequate gloves. Her feet felt like blocks of ice in her worn boots, and she had nowhere to go, no one to turn to, nothing but the clothes on her back and a small carpet bag that grew heavier with each step. The sound of hoofbeats made her turn, hope flaring briefly in her chest before fear replaced it. A lone rider approached through the swirling snow, tall in the saddle, his dark coat dusted with white. Olivia froze, uncertain whether to run or stand her ground, but her exhausted legs made the decision for her. She simply stood there, shivering, as the horse drew near and the rider pulled up beside her. "Madam, you are going to freeze to death out here," the cowboy said, his voice rough but not unkind. He was younger than she had first thought, perhaps 25 or 26, with dark hair visible beneath his hat and gray eyes that studied her with concern. "Where are you headed?" "Nowhere," Olivia heard herself say, and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I have nowhere to go." The cowboy dismounted in one fluid motion, landing in the snow beside her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and moved with the easy confidence of a man accustomed to hard work and harder conditions. "You have a home with me," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world to offer shelter to a complete stranger. "My ranch is just over that ridge. You will die if you stay out here, and I cannot let that happen. Come on now." Olivia stared at him, searching his face for signs of deception or ill intent, but she saw only honest concern. "I do not know you. Why would you help me?" "My name is Adam Irwin, and I help because it is the right thing to do," he replied. He picked up her carpet bag with one hand and offered her the other. "We can discuss the details once you are warm and safe. Right now, we need to move. Can you ride?" She nodded, though in truth she had only ridden a handful of times in her life. Adam helped her into the saddle with surprising gentleness, then swung up behind her. His arms came around her to take the reins, and she felt the solid warmth of his chest against her back. The horse started forward at his command, and Olivia let herself lean against him, too cold and exhausted to maintain propriety. The ride to the ranch took perhaps 20 minutes, though it felt like both an eternity and no time at all. Olivia drifted in and out of awareness, conscious mainly of the warmth gradually seeping into her from Adam's body and the steady rhythm of the horse's gait. When they finally stopped, she looked up to see a modest ranch house with smoke curling from the chimney, a barn nearby, and corrals that held several horses despite the weather. Adam dismounted and lifted her down as if she weighed nothing. "Can you walk?" "I think so," Olivia said, but when her feet touched the ground, her legs buckled. Adam caught her immediately, sweeping her up into his arms without hesitation. "No shame in it," he said. "You have been through an ordeal. Let us get you inside." The warmth of the house enveloped her like a blanket as Adam carried her through the door and kicked it shut behind them. The interior was simple but clean, with sturdy furniture and a fire crackling in the stone fireplace. He set her down in a chair near the hearth and immediately set about building up the fire. "We need to get you warm slowly," Adam said, his back to her as he worked. "Too fast and it can be dangerous. I will make coffee and something hot to eat. There is a bedroom through that door where you can change out of those wet clothes. I will find something for you to wear." Olivia watched him move through the house with efficient purpose, disappearing into what she assumed was his bedroom and returning with a flannel shirt and wool trousers. "I know they are not what you are accustomed to, but they are warm and dry. That is what matters right now." "Thank you," she whispered, taking the clothes with trembling hands. "I do not understand why you are being so kind to me." Adam met her eyes, and she saw something in his gaze that made her breath catch. "My mother died of exposure when I was 12, he said quietly. "She got lost in a snowstorm coming back from town. By the time we found her, it was too late. I swore then that I would never let another person freeze to death if I could prevent it. Now go on and get changed. I will be right out here." The bedroom was small but tidy, with a neatly made bed and a washstand in the corner. Olivia's fingers fumbled with the buttons of her dress, stiff with cold and exhaustion. It took her several minutes to undress and pull on the oversized clothes Adam had given her. The flannel shirt hung past her hips, and she had to roll the trouser legs several times, but they were blessedly warm and dry. She caught sight of herself in the small mirror above the washstand and almost laughed at the absurd picture she made, but the sound came out as a sob instead. She was 22 years old, alone in the world and utterly dependent on the charity of a stranger. 3 weeks ago, she had been living in St. Louis with her aunt and uncle, working as a seamstress and saving every penny she could. Then her uncle had died suddenly, and her aunt had remarried with shocking speed to a man who had made it clear that Olivia was not welcome in the household. She had used her savings to buy a ticket to Stillwater, where a distant cousin had promised her a position as a teacher, only to arrive and find that the cousin had moved away months earlier, and no one knew where. The stagecoach driver had given her until they reached the edge of town to produce the rest of her fare or get out, and when she had tried to explain that all her money was gone, he had simply thrown her belongings out and driven away. She had walked until she could walk no more, certain she would die alone in the snow, and then Adam Irwin had appeared like something out of a dream. When she emerged from the bedroom, she found Adam at the stove, stirring something in a pot that smelled heavenly. He looked up at her entrance and something flickered in his expression, too quick for her to identify. "Better?" he asked. "Much better, thank you," Olivia said, returning to the chair by the fire. "I owe you my life, Mr. Irwin." "Adam," he corrected, ladling thick stew into a bowl and bringing it to her with a chunk of bread. "And you owe me nothing but the truth. What brought you out here with nowhere to go?" As Olivia ate, the warmth of the food spreading through her body and bringing feeling back to her frozen extremities, she told him everything. She had nothing to lose by honesty, and something about Adam inspired trust. He listened without interruption, his gray eyes never leaving her face, and when she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "That is a hard story," he said at last. "But your bad luck ends here. I meant what I said before. You have a home with me for as long as you need it. I live alone, have done since my father passed 2 years ago. There is plenty of room, plenty of work if you want it, and no expectations beyond basic decency and honesty." "I cannot just live here," Olivia protested. "What would people say? It would ruin both our reputations." Adam's mouth quirked in what might have been a smile. "I do not put much stock in what people say, but if it concerns you, we will figure something out. Maybe you can work as my housekeeper, make it a business arrangement. God knows this place could use a woman's touch, and I am a terrible cook." "What do you say?" Olivia looked around the ranch house, seeing it with new eyes. It was clean but stark, functional rather than comfortable, clearly the home of a man who spent most of his time working rather than living. She could make it better, warmer, more like a home. And the alternative was going back out into the snow with nowhere to turn. "I say yes," she said, meeting his eyes. "And thank you, Adam. You have saved my life tonight." "Then we have an accord," Adam said, and this time the smile reached his eyes. "Welcome to the Circle I Ranch, Olivia Davison. I have a feeling things are about to get a lot more interesting around here." That first night, Olivia slept in Adam's bed while he took the small cot in the corner of the main room, insisting that she needed the rest more than he did. She protested, but he was immovable, and she was too exhausted to argue long. She fell asleep almost the moment her head touched the pillow, wrapped in warm quilts that smelled faintly of sage and leather, and did not wake until sunlight was streaming through the window. For a confused moment, she could not remember where she was, and then it all came flooding back. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding, and wrapped one of the quilts around herself before venturing out into the main room. Adam was already up, dressed in work clothes and pouring coffee from a pot on the stove. "Good morning," he said, looking up with that same steady gaze that had convinced her to trust him yesterday. "I let you sleep as long as I could, but I need to get out and tend to the animals soon. There is bread and butter on the table, and the coffee is fresh." "I should be up helping you," Olivia said, acutely aware of how she must look with her hair loose around her shoulders and wearing nothing but a quilt over his borrowed clothes. "You should be resting and recovering," Adam countered. "But if you insist on making yourself useful, you could start by exploring the house and making a list of what supplies we need. The pantry is through that door, and there is a root cellar out back. I will be back in a few hours, and we can go into town this afternoon if you feel up to it." "Into town," Olivia echoed, anxiety rising in her chest. "But everyone will see us together." "That is the point," Adam said calmly. "Better to face the gossip head-on than let it fester. We will explain that you are my new housekeeper, that I hired you properly, and everything is above board. Most folks in Stillwater are decent people. They will understand." He made it sound so simple, but Olivia knew how quickly rumors could spread and reputations could be destroyed. Still, he was right that hiding would only make things worse. She nodded slowly, and Adam smiled at her. "That is settled then. Eat something, rest, and I will see you in a few hours." He was gone before she could respond, pulling on a heavy coat and hat and disappearing out into the cold morning. Olivia stood alone in the quiet house, listening to the crackle of the fire and the distant lowing of cattle, and wondered what she had gotten herself into. The house, she discovered as she explored, was larger than it had seemed at first. Besides the main room with its fireplace and cooking area, there were 2 bedrooms, a storage room, and a small washroom with a tin tub. Everything was scrupulously clean but spare, with none of the small comforts that turned a house into a home. No curtains on the windows, no rugs on the floor, no pictures on the walls. It was the dwelling of a man who had lost the women in his life and never learned how to fill the spaces they left behind. Olivia found paper and a pencil in a drawer and began making her list. Curtain fabric, rugs, dish towels, proper cooking supplies beyond the bare necessities. Food staples that would allow her to make decent meals. Soap and cleaning supplies. Her seamstress training meant she could make many things herself if she had the materials, and the thought of having a project, a purpose, sent a surge of energy through her. She was so absorbed in her planning that she did not hear Adam return until he spoke from the doorway. "You look like a woman with a mission." Olivia jumped, then laughed at herself. "You startled me. I was just making notes. I hope you have a good supply of money because this place needs a lot." "I do well enough," Adam said, moving to the washstand to clean up. "The ranch turns a profit, and I have few expenses. Whatever you need within reason you can have. I want you to be comfortable here." They ate a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and cold meat, and then Adam hitched up a wagon for the trip into town. The snow had stopped during the night, leaving the world covered in a blanket of white that sparkled in the afternoon sun. Olivia sat beside Adam on the wagon seat, wrapped in a coat he had found for her, and tried to calm her nerves. Stillwater was a small town, hardly more than a main street with buildings clustered on either side. There was a general store, a saloon, a church, a blacksmith, a doctor's office, and a handful of other establishments. As Adam pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the general store, Olivia saw curtains twitching in windows and people pausing in their activities to stare. "Steady," Adam murmured, offering her his hand to help her down. "Just follow my lead." The general store was warm and crowded with goods, everything from bolts of fabric to farming implements to jars of candy. Behind the counter stood a plump woman with sharp eyes and an expression that might have been friendly or might have been calculating. "Adam Irwin," she said, her gaze moving immediately to Olivia. "I did not expect to see you in town today. And who might this be?" "Mrs. Patterson, this is Miss Olivia Davison, my new housekeeper," Adam said, his voice carrying clearly through the store. "Olivia, Mrs. Patterson runs the general store with her husband." "Housekeeper," Mrs. Patterson repeated, her eyebrows climbing toward her hairline. "Well now, that is unexpected. When did this happen?" "I hired her yesterday," Adam said calmly. "She was stranded by the stagecoach with nowhere to go, and I needed help around the ranch. It worked out well for both of us." "I am sure it did," Mrs. Patterson said, and there was no mistaking the skepticism in her tone now. "Does Reverend Matthews know about this arrangement?" "I do not see why he would need to," Adam replied, his voice hardening slightly. "But I will be happy to discuss it with him if he has concerns. Now, Olivia has a list of supplies we need. I trust you can help us." It was a dismissal, polite but firm, and Mrs. Patterson seemed to recognize that pushing further would be unwise. She turned her attention to the list Olivia handed her, and for the next half hour, they gathered everything they needed. Other customers came and went, each one casting curious glances at Olivia, and she heard the whispers starting even before they left the store. "That went about as well as I expected," Adam said as he loaded the supplies into the wagon. "Do not let it bother you. They will find something else to gossip about soon enough." But Olivia could see the tension in his shoulders and the tight line of his mouth, and she felt a surge of guilt. He had taken her in out of pure kindness, and now she was causing problems for him. "I am sorry," she said quietly. "I have brought trouble to your door." Adam stopped what he was doing and turned to face her, his gray eyes intense. "You listen to me, Olivia Davison. You have brought nothing but a bit of life to a house that has been too quiet for too long. I do not care what Mrs. Patterson or anyone else thinks. I did the right thing bringing you home, and I would do it again. Do you understand?" Olivia nodded, not trusting herself to speak past the lump in her throat. No one had defended her like that since her parents died, and the fierce protectiveness in Adam's voice made something warm unfurl in her chest. The ride back to the ranch was quiet, but it was a comfortable silence, broken only by the creak of the wagon and the sound of the horses' hooves in the snow. When they arrived, Adam unloaded the supplies while Olivia started a fire in the stove and began planning dinner. She had bought a chicken from Mrs. Patterson, along with vegetables and herbs, and she was determined to show Adam that hiring her had been a good decision. As she worked in the kitchen, she was aware of Adam moving around the house, putting things away and tending to evening chores. They moved around each other with surprising ease, and Olivia found herself humming as she cooked, something she had not done in longer than she could remember. Dinner was a revelation. Adam stared at his plate of roasted chicken, potatoes, and gravy as if he could not quite believe it was real. And when he took his first bite, He closed his eyes with an expression of pure bliss. "I have not had a meal like this since my mother died," he said, opening his eyes to look at her with something like wonder. "You can really cook." "I can do many things," Olivia said, pleased by his reaction. "Sewing, cooking, cleaning, basic medicine. My mother made sure I learned everything a woman should know, and my aunt added a few more skills on top of that. I may not have money or family, Adam, but I am not helpless." "I can see that," Adam said, and there was respect in his voice that made Olivia sit a little straighter. "I am glad you are here, Olivia. I think this arrangement is going to work out just fine." The days fell into a rhythm after that. Adam rose before dawn to tend to the cattle and horses, while Olivia managed the house and prepared meals. She sewed curtains from fabric she had bought in town, bright, cheerful patterns that transformed the stark windows. She scrubbed floors, washed laundry, and slowly added small touches that made the ranch house feel more like a home. A vase of dried flowers on the table, cushions for the wooden chairs, a quilt draped over the back of the sofa. Adam noticed every change, and his appreciation was evident in the way his face would light up when he came in from a long day of work to find something new. He began lingering in the house longer in the evenings, helping with dishes or sitting by the fire while Olivia sewed. They talked about everything and nothing, sharing stories of their pasts and their dreams for the future. Olivia learned that Adam had been running the ranch alone since his father's death, working from dawn to dusk to keep it profitable. He was lonely, she realized, as lonely as she had been. "Why have you never married?" she asked one evening, then immediately regretted the boldness of the question. "I am sorry, that was too personal." "No, it is all right," Adam said, staring into the fire. "I came close once, about 3 years ago. Her name was Sarah, and we were engaged to be married. But then she met a banker from Kansas City who came through town, and she decided she would rather have a life in the city than on a ranch. Cannot say I blame her. This is a hard life, and not everyone is cut out for it." "She was a fool," Olivia said fiercely. "Any woman would be lucky to have you." Adam turned to look at her, and something in his gaze made her heart skip a beat. "You think so?" "I know so," Olivia said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. In the weeks she had been living on the ranch, she had come to know Adam as a man of integrity, kindness, and strength. He worked harder than anyone she had ever known, never complained, and treated her with unfailing respect and courtesy. More than that, he made her laugh, made her feel safe, made her feel valued in a way she had never experienced before. The truth was, she was falling in love with him. The realization hit her like a thunderbolt, stealing her breath and making her hands still on her sewing. She was in love with Adam Irwin, the cowboy who had saved her life and given her a home. The man who smiled at her over breakfast and thanked her for every meal. The man whose voice made her feel warm all over and whose presence made every day brighter. "Olivia." Adam's voice pulled her from her thoughts. "Are you all right?" "Yes," she said quickly, forcing herself to resume sewing. "Just lost in thought for a moment." But when she glanced up, she found Adam still watching her with an expression she could not quite read, and she wondered if perhaps she was not the only one whose feelings had grown beyond friendship. Winter deepened, and the ranch was often cut off from town by snow and ice. Olivia did not mind. She had everything she needed right here, and the enforced isolation gave her more time with Adam. They fell into new patterns, cooking together in the evenings, reading aloud from the books on Adam's shelves, playing cards and checkers by the fire. Sometimes they barely spoke, content in comfortable silence, and other times they talked for hours. On Christmas Eve, Adam disappeared into the barn after supper and returned with a small pine tree that he set up in the corner of the main room. "I know we do not have much in the way of decorations," he said, brushing snow from his coat, "but it did not seem right to let the day pass without marking it somehow." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. She had been dreading Christmas, expecting it to be a painful reminder of all she had lost, but Adam had found a way to make it special. "It is perfect," she said. "Wait here." She hurried to the bedroom and retrieved the project she had been working on in secret for the past week. Using scraps of fabric and thread, she had created a dozen small ornaments: stars, angels, bells, and snowflakes. They were simple, but they were made with love, and when she brought them out and began hanging them on the tree, Adam's face broke into a smile that made her heart soar. "You made these?" he asked, touching a delicate fabric angel with gentle fingers. "I wanted to give you something," Olivia said. "You have given me so much, and I had nothing to offer in return but my skills." "They are beautiful," Adam said softly. "Thank you, Olivia." They stood together, admiring their little tree, and Adam's hand found hers in the dimness. His fingers were warm and calloused from work, and they wrapped around hers with a tenderness that made her breath catch. She looked up at him and found him already looking down at her, and the moment stretched between them, heavy with possibility. "Olivia," Adam said, his voice rough, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" she whispered. "I am glad you came into my life," he said. "I know the circumstances were terrible, but I cannot regret what brought you here. You have made this house a home again. You have made me remember what it is like to have someone to come home to, someone to share my days with. I do not want you to leave, not ever." "Do you understand what I am saying?" Olivia's heart was hammering so hard she could barely hear over it. "I think so, but I need you to say it clearly." Adam's free hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb brushing across her skin with infinite gentleness. "I am falling in love with you, Olivia Davison. I have been fighting it because you are my employee, because you are under my protection, because I did not want to take advantage. But I cannot pretend anymore. I love you, and I want to know if there is any chance you might feel the same." "Yes," Olivia breathed, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Yes, Adam, I feel the same. I love you too. I have been so afraid to say it, afraid that I was imagining things, afraid that you would send me away." "Never," Adam said fiercely, and then he was kissing her, his lips warm and soft against hers. Olivia melted into him, her arms going around his neck, and for a long moment the world narrowed to just the two of them and the thundering of their hearts. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast, I know we have not known each other long, but I am sure. I have never been more sure of anything in my life. Marry me, Olivia, and make this your home forever." "Yes," Olivia said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married 3 weeks later in the small church in Stillwater, with half the town in attendance. Reverend Matthews performed the ceremony, and if he had any private reservations about the hasty courtship, he kept them to himself. Mrs. Patterson and the other townswomen had apparently decided that a wedding made everything respectable, and they threw themselves into preparations with enthusiasm. Olivia wore a dress she had sewn herself from ivory silk, simple but elegant, and Adam wore a new suit that made him look devastatingly handsome. As they stood before the altar and spoke their vows, Olivia felt as if her heart might burst with happiness. This man who had saved her life, who had given her a home when she had nothing, was now promising to love and cherish her for the rest of his days. When he slipped a simple gold band onto her finger, she knew she had found where she belonged. The reception was held at the ranch, with tables set up in the barn and lanterns hung from the rafters. There was music and dancing, food and laughter, and for one magical evening, Olivia felt like the luckiest woman in the world. Adam never left her side, his hand always finding hers, his eyes constantly seeking her out in the crowd. When the guests finally left and they were alone, Adam swept her up into his arms and carried her across the threshold, both of them laughing like children. He set her down gently in the bedroom, which Olivia had transformed with new quilts and curtains, and a dozen small touches that made it unmistakably theirs. "Hello, Mrs. Irwin," Adam said, his hand settling on her waist. "Hello, Mr. Irwin," Olivia replied, her own hands coming up to rest on his chest. She could feel his heart beating beneath her palms, steady and strong. "I love you," Adam said, and kissed her again, deeper this time, full of promise and passion. Olivia kissed him back with everything she had, and when he lifted her and laid her on the bed, she went willingly, joyfully, ready to begin this new chapter of their lives together. Their wedding night was everything Olivia had hoped for and more. Adam was tender and patient, taking his time to learn her body and bring her pleasure. There was an awkward moment when Olivia realized neither of them had much experience, but they laughed about it together, and the shared vulnerability only brought them closer. By the time they finally fell asleep in each other's arms, Olivia knew that she had found not just a husband, but a true partner in every sense of the word. The months that followed their wedding were the happiest of Olivia's life. She threw herself into making the ranch house a true home, expanding the vegetable garden in the spring, adding chickens to provide fresh eggs, even convincing Adam to let her try her hand at raising a few pigs. Adam taught her to ride properly, and soon she was accompanying him on trips to check the cattle, learning the rhythms of ranch life. They worked side by side during the long days and fell into each other's arms at night, their love deepening with every passing week. Olivia marveled at how easy it was to be with Adam, how natural their partnership felt. They had their disagreements, of course, but they always talked through them, refusing to let anger fester or pride get in the way of understanding. In late summer, Olivia realized her monthly courses were late. She waited another week to be sure before telling Adam, and when she finally did, his reaction was everything she had hoped for. He let out a whoop of joy and spun her around until she was dizzy, then set her down with exaggerated care, his hands going immediately to her still flat stomach. "A baby," he said, wonder in his voice. "We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Olivia asked, though she could see the answer written clearly on his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Adam said, pulling her close. "You have given me everything, Olivia. A home, a purpose, and now a family. I am the luckiest man alive." The pregnancy progressed smoothly, and Olivia bloomed with health and happiness. The townswomen, who had been skeptical of her at first, warmed to her as they saw the obvious love between her and Adam. They threw her a party to celebrate the coming baby, showering her with handmade blankets and tiny clothes and advice both wanted and unwanted. Olivia took it all in stride, grateful for the community that had accepted her. As winter returned and Olivia's belly swelled with new life, she sometimes thought back to that day a year ago when she had been crying in the snow with nowhere to go. It seemed like a lifetime ago, like it had happened to a different person. That frightened, desperate girl had become a confident woman, secure in her place in the world and the love of her husband. On a cold February night, with snow falling gently outside, Olivia went into labor. Adam rode through the storm to fetch the doctor, then paced the main room like a caged animal while Dr. Henderson and Mrs. Patterson attended to his wife. It was a long labor, and Adam aged 10 years in those hours, terrified every time he heard Olivia cry out. But when the baby's first wail finally pierced the air, followed by Mrs. Patterson emerging with a huge smile to announce that he had a healthy son, Adam nearly collapsed with relief. He rushed into the bedroom to find Olivia propped up against the pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in a blue blanket. "Come meet your son," she said softly, and Adam approached slowly, almost reverently. When he looked down at the baby's red, wrinkled face, he felt something shift inside him, a fierce protectiveness and love unlike anything he had ever experienced. "He is perfect," Adam whispered, sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. "You are perfect. I love you so much, Olivia." "I love you too," Olivia said, leaning against him. "What should we name him?" They had discussed names endlessly over the past months, never quite settling on one they both loved. But now, looking at his son's face, Adam knew. "Thomas," he said, "after my father, Thomas Matthew Irwin." "Thomas," Olivia repeated, smiling down at the baby. "It suits him. Welcome to the world, Thomas Irwin." Young Thomas proved to be a good baby, healthy and relatively calm. Olivia recovered quickly from the birth, and soon she was back to managing the household while caring for their son. Adam was a devoted father, rushing through his chores to spend time with the baby, holding him for hours and making funny faces to coax out smiles. The ranch prospered as the years passed. Adam expanded his herd, built a new barn, hired a few hands to help with the work. Olivia's garden flourished, and she began selling her preserves and baked goods in town, earning a reputation as an excellent cook. They added to their family as well. 2 years after Thomas was born, a daughter arrived whom they named Emily Rose. 3 years after that, another son, Samuel James, completed their family. The ranch house that had once been so stark and empty was now filled with the sound of children's laughter, the clatter of toys, the warmth of a true family home. Olivia had sewn curtains and quilts in cheerful patterns, hung pictures on the walls, filled shelves with books and treasures. Every corner reflected love and care. Life was not always easy. There were hard winters when they worried about losing cattle, dry summers when water was scarce, years when money was tight. Thomas broke his arm falling from a tree, and Emily had a frightening bout of fever that had both parents sitting up for 3 nights straight. Samuel proved to be a handful, always getting into mischief and giving them gray hairs. But through it all, Adam and Olivia faced every challenge together, their love the foundation that held everything else up. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Olivia with a trip to Kansas City. They left the children with Mrs. Patterson, who had become a good friend over the years, and took the train to the city. It was Olivia's first time on a train, her first time in a real city, and she was overwhelmed by the noise and crowds and sheer size of everything. Adam took her to nice restaurants, to the theater, to shops where she could buy fabric and books and small luxuries they could now afford. But Olivia's favorite part was the evenings in their hotel room, just the two of them, talking and laughing and making love without worrying about children overhearing. They fell in love all over again on that trip, remembering what it was like to be just Adam and Olivia instead of Mama and Papa. "I have been thinking," Adam said on their last night in the city as they lay tangled together in the big hotel bed, "about how different my life would be if I had not found you that day in the snow." "Do not think about it," Olivia said, pressing a kiss to his chest. "We found each other, and that is all that matters." "But I cannot help but think about it sometimes," Adam insisted. "What if I had gone a different way that day? What if I had not seen you? You might have died, and I would never have known what I was missing. I would still be rattling around in that empty house, alone and lonely and not even fully aware of it." "But you did find me," Olivia said firmly, rising up on one elbow to look him in the eye. "You rode up out of the storm like something out of a storybook and told me I had a home with you." "You saved my life, Adam, in every way a person can be saved, and I hope I have done the same for you." "You have," Adam said, pulling her down for a deep kiss. "You absolutely have. I love you, Olivia Irwin. Today, tomorrow, and for all the days we have left." They returned to the ranch to find their children bursting with stories and desperate for hugs, and Olivia realized that as wonderful as the trip had been, this was where she truly wanted to be. Home, surrounded by the family she and Adam had built together. As the children grew, Olivia made sure they knew their story. She told them about the snowstorm, about how she had been lost and alone with nowhere to go, about how their father had appeared and offered her a home. She wanted them to understand that family was not always about blood, that sometimes the most important connections were the ones you chose. Thomas grew into a quiet, serious boy who loved books and had his mother's head for figures. By the time he was 12, he was managing the ranch accounts better than Adam ever had. Emily was bright and mischievous, always asking questions and pushing boundaries. She announced at age 10 that she was going to be a doctor, and neither Adam nor Olivia doubted she would find a way to make it happen. Samuel was the cowboy of the family, happiest when he was outside working with the horses and cattle, clearly destined to take over the ranch someday. Adam and Olivia watched their children grow with pride and amazement, marveling at the individuals they were becoming. On quiet evenings, after the children were in bed, they would sit on the porch and look out over the land they had built their life on, hands entwined, content in the companionship they had forged. "You ever regret it?" Adam asked one such evening when they were both 40 and the children were nearly grown. "The life you might have had if circumstances had been different. City life, society, all the things you might have experienced." "Never," Olivia said without hesitation. "This life, this ranch, you and our children, this is everything I ever wanted, even when I did not know I wanted it. I would not trade a single moment, not even the hard times, because they brought me here." "Even that day in the snow?" Adam asked quietly. "Even the circumstances that led to it?" Olivia was quiet for a moment, thinking about the grief and fear and desperation she had felt that day. "Even that," she said finally, "because it brought me to you, and you are worth everything I went through to find you." Adam lifted their joined hands and pressed a kiss to her knuckles. "I feel the same way. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Olivia Irwin." As they sat together in the gathering dusk, Olivia reflected on the journey that had brought them here. She had been so lost, so alone, so certain that her life was over. And then Adam had appeared, this kind, strong man who had looked at a stranger in distress and immediately offered help. He had given her shelter, employment, friendship, and eventually love. He had given her a home, not just a physical place but a true home in every sense of the word. And she had given him the same in return. She had taken his stark, lonely house and filled it with warmth and life. She had given him children, a true family, someone to share his burdens and joys. They had built this life together, brick by brick, day by day, choice by choice. The years continued to pass, marked by the rhythms of ranch life and the milestones of their children's lives. Thomas went off to college in Kansas City to study business, promising to return and help modernize the ranch. Emily fought tooth and nail for permission to attend medical school, and eventually wore down their objections through sheer determination. Samuel never wanted to leave, taking on more and more of the ranch work as Adam slowed down. Adam and Olivia grew older together, their love deepening even as their hair grayed and their bodies moved more slowly. They were grandparents by their 50th birthdays, Thomas having married a lovely young woman he met in Kansas City, and Emily eventually marrying a fellow doctor. Samuel found his match in a rancher's daughter from a neighboring spread, and the two of them ran the Circle I Ranch with energy and innovation. Through it all, Adam and Olivia remained each other's anchors. They still held hands when they walked, still kissed each other good morning and good night, still found time to sit on the porch and talk. Their love had weathered every storm, grown stronger through every challenge, and become the stuff of legend in Stillwater. People in town told their story to newcomers, the tale of the cowboy who found a woman crying in the snow and told her she had a home with him. It became a symbol of the community's values: kindness to strangers, helping those in need, the power of love to transform lives. Young couples asked Adam and Olivia for advice on building strong marriages, and they always gave the same counsel: communicate honestly, work together, choose love every day even when it is hard. On their 40th wedding anniversary, the whole town turned out for a celebration at the ranch. There was music and dancing, food enough to feed an army, speeches and toasts that went on for hours. Adam and Olivia sat in places of honor, surrounded by their children and grandchildren, their friends and neighbors, and felt overwhelmed by the life they had built. "Who would have thought," Olivia said to Adam as they watched their grandchildren playing in the yard, "that a chance meeting in a snowstorm would lead to all this?" "It was not chance," Adam said, his arm around her shoulders. "It was fate, destiny, whatever you want to call it. We were meant to find each other, meant to build this life together. I believe that with my whole heart." "So do I," Olivia agreed, leaning into him. "So do I." As the celebration continued around them, Olivia thought about that terrified young woman she had been, stumbling through the snow with no hope and nowhere to go. She wished she could go back and tell that girl that everything would be all right, that salvation was riding toward her even then. That the cowboy who would save her would become the love of her life, the father of her children, her partner in everything. That she would find not just shelter from the storm, but a true home in every sense of the word. But maybe that girl had known on some level when Adam had said those simple words, "You have a home with me." Maybe she had recognized the truth in them, the promise they contained. Maybe that was why she had agreed so readily, why she had trusted a stranger with her life and heart. Adam and Olivia lived well into their 70s, still active and engaged with their family and community. They saw their grandchildren grow up and begin having children of their own. The Circle I Ranch remained in the family, passing from Samuel to his son, a fifth generation continuing the work Adam's great-grandfather had started. When Adam finally passed away one quiet spring morning, surrounded by his family, his last words were for Olivia. "Thank you," he whispered, his hand in hers. "Thank you for choosing me, for building this life with me. I love you now and always." "I love you too," Olivia said through her tears. "I will see you again, my darling. Wait for me." Olivia lived another 2 years after Adam's death, held close by her children and grandchildren, never alone. She spent her final days in the ranch house they had shared for so many decades, surrounded by the life they had built together. And when she finally closed her eyes for the last time, she did so with a smile on her face, secure in the knowledge that she had lived a life full of love and meaning. At her funeral, Thomas stood before the gathered crowd and told the story one more time. The story of the snowstorm, the desperate young woman, the cowboy who offered her a home. The story of two people who found each other against all odds and built a love that lasted a lifetime. The story of kindness and courage, of taking chances and choosing hope, even in the darkest moments. "My parents taught us that family is what you make it," Thomas said, his voice strong despite his grief. "They taught us that love is a choice you make every day, that home is not a place but a feeling, that kindness can change lives." They lived those values every single day, and their legacy lives on in all of us. The family buried Olivia beside Adam in the small cemetery on a hill overlooking the ranch, where they could watch over the land they had loved so much. Their shared headstone bore a simple inscription: Adam and Olivia Irwin, together forever. She had nowhere to go, he gave her a home, they gave each other everything. Years passed, and the story of Adam and Olivia became a treasured part of Stillwater's history, told and retold until it took on an almost mythic quality. But for their descendants, it remained a real and living thing, a reminder of where they came from and the values they carried forward. On cold winter nights, when snow fell softly outside, the family would gather in the ranch house and tell the story again. They would speak of courage and kindness, of taking chances and choosing love, of two people who found each other in the most unlikely circumstances and built something beautiful together. And in those moments, it was as if Adam and Olivia were there with them still, their love continuing to warm and light the home they had made. The Circle I Ranch thrived through the generations, always remaining in the family, always reflecting the values Adam and Olivia had instilled. Each generation added their own touches, made their own improvements, but the heart of the place remained the same. It was a home built on love, a sanctuary created from kindness, a living testament to the power of two people choosing each other. And sometimes, on quiet winter evenings when the snow fell just right, people swore they could see two figures on the porch, holding hands and looking out over the land they had loved. Whether it was imagination or something more, it brought comfort to all who saw it, a reminder that true love never really dies. The story that had begun with tears in the snow and a simple offer of home had become a legacy that would endure for generations. Adam and Olivia Irwin had lived their lives well, loved deeply, and left behind a family that carried their values forward. They had turned a chance meeting in a storm into a lifetime of happiness, and their love story became the foundation upon which everything else was built. In the end, that was the greatest gift they gave their descendants, not wealth or land or social standing, but the example of what true love looked like. They showed that it was possible to build something lasting from the most unpromising beginnings, that kindness could change the course of a life. That home was something you created with the person you loved. Their story lived on not just in words but in actions, as their descendants carried forward the lessons they had learned. They offered help to those in need, welcomed strangers, built their own families on foundations of love and respect. The ripples from that one act of kindness on a snowy day continued to spread outward, touching more lives with each generation. And so the legacy of Adam and Olivia Irwin endured, a testament to the power of love and kindness, to the importance of offering home to those who have nowhere to go, to the beautiful things that can grow when two people choose each other and commit to building a life together. Their love story, which began with desperation and ended with peace, remained an inspiration and a guide for all who came after, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope and love can light the way home.